today I want to talk to you about the academic job search. This dreaded thing. You finally finished your PhD. Now, I don't know about you, but working on my dissertation was extremely stressful. And then knowing that at the end of that stress ball and anxiety-fueled nightmare was this continuation of an anxiety-fueled nightmare, now trying to find a job. Because I'm sure you're aware that once you finish your PhD, that's just the beginning, and finding a job in academia is extremely difficult. Now, I began applying for jobs back in, about August of 2019. I was working on my dissertation with a deadline of trying to finish around May of 2020. So I went ahead and started applying for jobs knowing that I would be able to finish my dissertation and be eligible for starting some kind of assistant professor or academic position for the fall of 2020. And with that in mind, I decided I wanted to track to see what was my search and job process like. Because I went through my Google Drive folder and I just had all of these job application materials and cover letters. And I was just curious what that broke down into, because it's been a stressful year. COVID kind of threw things up in the air a bunch and made the job process even more daunting. So I wanted to visualize it, and I decided to see what exactly my job process looked like. So what I have here on this screen that you've probably been looking at is this breakdown of what kinds of jobs I applied for and the results of those applications. So I ended up looking and saw that I applied for a total of 39 jobs. I sent this to my brother, and he's like, 39 jobs, that's not too bad. When I finished my master's program, I applied for hundreds of jobs, and he's got his master's in accounting. And I was like, that's the difference. In academia, there aren't hundreds of jobs, especially not every year. And even having 39, you'll see that most of these aren't exactly assistant professor positions or positions that were highly relevant. What's true about the field is that there's a very limited number of jobs that open up every year. And of those already limited number of jobs, only a few of them might be extremely good fits for your qualifications, your research interests, goals, etc. So having even 39 jobs apply for, that was a large amount. And now I want to talk to you a little bit about what those 39 jobs look like. So my goal is to become an assistant professor and eventually get on that tenure line track. So of the 39 jobs I applied for, 22 of those were for assistant professor positions. And again, as I said, of those 22, I'd say that the vast majority of those were jobs that were not extremely good fits. I applied for some that were in information technology departments, even though my area of focus is educational technology. I also applied for some in special education, some that were more teacher education. So anything that even slightly fit my general area of computer science, IT, education, instructional design, anything like that, I went ahead and applied for it. So I'm going to first talk to you about these 22 jobs that I applied for. So of the 22, I received 12 that were rejected in some way. And because of limitations in the software that I used to create this visualization, this 12 wasn't necessarily you were rejected, but it just meant that the job did not go through to an interview stage. And sometimes that was because the job was actually canceled and was no longer having that position filled, or there is a hiring freeze, or some other variation. Sometimes it was saying, hey, we have moved on with people that were more qualified and fit the position's needs better than you. So on top of that, I received another 7 that were canceled specifically for COVID. And I only included it in this if I received an email saying this job has been closed because of budget cuts or because we're putting a hiring freeze because of the situation. It's too difficult to try and hire, to bring people to campus and to interview them because of COVID. So that was another 7. So 19 out of my 22 jobs that I applied for that were assistant professor kinds of jobs, I received some kind of cancellation or rejection email. So I did have 3 phone interviews, and one of them actually was for an information technology assistant professor position and assistant professor in virtual reality at a small private university. And of the 3 phone interviews, 2 of them led to campus visits, and one of them led to I was not moved forward into the process and was not invited to visit campus. And that actually was the assistant professor in an IT department. I was not invited to visit campus. Of the remaining 2, I did receive a campus invite where I went to campus and did the whole 2 to 3 day job interview process, which I'll talk more about in a future video. And of those 2, one moved on with forward with someone else, and on the other one, I waited for quite some time. I believe I applied for that job in November of 2019, and then I went to campus in mid-February, and then they reached out to my references and reached back out to me, and then I had radio silence for a while. And they finally reached back out to me and set up a Zoom call. And in that call, they essentially told me, hey, we wanted to hire you, but we have had a hiring freeze because of COVID. So it's like so that was a little bit of a bummer. So I didn't put that underneath COVID cancel because I wanted to kind of highlight that. Then I made it all the way through the campus interview phase. Had it expressed to me that I was their candidate of interest, and then they ended up not being able to fill that position. So that sucked. Of the other positions that I applied for, the other 17 jobs, that was broken down to a variety of things, anywhere from adjuncts to industry positions, clinical professors, postdocs, endowed chairs, and research associates. As you can see, most of those did not lead to all that much. I had 2 rejections from the 2 research associate positions I applied for. I applied for an endowed chair position, which I was not qualified for, but I threw together an application because you never know what's going to happen, and I've yet to hear back from them on that. I did not receive an opportunity to interview for the clinical professor position. And of the 7 postdocs I applied for, I had 6 say that they were not interested in moving forward. And then I had 1 Zoom interview and a follow-up interview, and ultimately did receive a postdoc job offer, which is where I'm currently at the University of Connecticut, and I accepted that job, as you can see here. But at the same time, while I was doing that, I was also applying for some jobs in industry, typically instructional design positions or instructional technologist positions that were at universities. And I applied for 4 of those, knowing that my primary interest was becoming an assistant professor. I wasn't deeply interested in industry positions, but I was considering some that I felt I could leverage up to some kind of purely academic job at some point. So I applied for 4 positions. 2 of them I did not receive a response from. I did have 2 interviews, and then I had 2 second interviews, and I had 2 job offers. And one of them actually ended up being a short-term job that was only a 10-week contract position that I went ahead and I finished over the summer and ended in August of 2020 with the goal of helping out a university prepare their courses and instructors for teaching online because of COVID. So I accepted and finished that work in August. And then I received another job offer for a university in Colorado. that I ultimately ended up declining because I was offered a postdoc position at the University of Connecticut, which I wanted because that was more research-based, and obviously wanting to go into academia, a postdoc was more aligned with my career trajectory than working as an instructional technologist. Also of note is that I did apply for 2 adjunct positions, and I did receive 2 job offers for both of these to teach a couple of courses, and funnily enough, both of those job offers were retracted in the middle of the onboarding process, where I had already received an email and a letter offering me the position to teach the course, and while I was doing onboarding, be it submitting my tax information and doing my background check and all of that, both of those ended up getting pulled. One was because of COVID, where a hiring freeze took place, and another was because of enrollment issues, where the course that I was offered to teach, another professor in that department did not reach enrollment numbers for a different course, so they had that professor take over the course that I was offered to teach. So it's interesting to see this information, I think, in this format, because like we all know that the application process, it is hard, and trying to find a job after you finish your PhD is extremely difficult. And throw COVID into the mix, and it's been like absolutely all over the place. Most, like at least a third of the jobs have been canceled or haven't heard back, and COVID was oftentimes the case. There was a running document on a variety of academic resources and blogs with universities that had rescinded offers and put hiring freezes on, and I was following that as I was going through the application process myself, just to see what was happening. And you never know what's going to happen in academia. And I can say that I learned a lot in this process, and eventually I want to make a video where I'm going to talk about some of the things that I learned on my for my first year on the job market. So that will be coming up soon. And but you know, I'm glad I ended up where I'm at. I have a fantastic postdoc at the University of Connecticut, and quite frankly, that job came out of nowhere. I had that the application sent to me, the call for applicants sent to me from a colleague. I had not even seen the job, and it was sent to me, and it kind of got like streamlined, and before I knew it, I had a job where I thought I was going to be taking an industry job. So you never know in academia, and I plan to keep track of the application process as I go through other, I guess, hiring seasons in academia, which tend to start in the fall and go until the spring each year. And I'm going to just try and keep track of everything and offer my advice and tips as I go through the process for all of you. So I hope you found this useful. I also plan on making a video to talk about how I made this visualization, so stay tuned for that as well.